Hey, thanks for joining. This is Eric with Eric Ingram Homes, and just want to talk real quick about architecture plans and architects and engineering. So recently, or may have been last year sometime, someone reached out to me, and they had what they said was a set of plans because they wanted to build their dream home, and they were looking for engineer, or they were looking for someone to help them finish the set of plans. And I'm pulling it up on the computer, but basically what they sent me was a 2-page diagram, and it really was like a floor plan layout, and they needed these plans to be able to build the house they were looking to build. And first and foremost, the issue was this was not a set of plans. That's really where we're going. It was 2 pages, and there was no internal dimensions, and it wasn't going to be something that I could send to any planning department and it would pass, and the planning department would allow that structure to be built. So first and foremost, you want to make sure you are getting a set of plans that have all the different sections that are required. The section for the footing, the foundation, the wall structure, like what the wall looks like a wall detail. Basically describes from the footing all the way up to the roof. There'll be a wall detail. You want to make sure that you're getting every floor that's in the plan, that's supposed to be built, with dimensions in the plan. You want to make sure that you get and have some language on the architectural plans that talks about satisfying building codes. You want to make sure that if it's a crawl space, it has the calculation for how many crawl space vents are required, and most importantly, you want to make sure that the entire set of plans has been engineered and stamped by an engineer that's licensed in the state of North Carolina, which is where I'm licensed to build. It's super important to kind of pay attention or have someone consult, or even get some opinions from a builder or somebody that can look at those plans and say, yeah, this is a good set of plans. This is buildable. It has all the information. And in some cases, you're just not going to get that, because of whoever put the plans together. Architects are expensive. Another route to go is hiring a drafts person. They're going to have possibly a per square foot cost, to draw out the plans. And you don't always get a good set of plans that's clear, that has proper elevation diagrams, that has proper measurements and dimensions. Because when you start framing the house, you need to make sure, as a builder, we want to make sure the plans have adequate information to be able to start the build. One other key thing is, having a site survey and a plot plan where on the lot is the house going to sit, with dimensions and setbacks and all that kind of stuff. So when you start building a house, you're putting the corners of the house where the plan says the corners of the house should be, and with the right dimensions and so forth and so on, of where the house needs to be on the lot, right? So you can't just have like a 2-page plan with no dimensions. How far is this wall from that wall, right? Or things like simple stuff, right? And also just be prepared. If you get a set of plans offline, at the end of the day, they need to be engineered. They're going to have to pass a planning department in some municipality, here in North Carolina. So you just want to make sure that those plans will do that, right? And not just buy something offline and think that, you got everything that you need to build. You want to make sure that, the set of plans is drawn out to the specifications of the North Carolina Residential Building Code, and as well as, the municipality, that you're building in. And, you're going to pay for a set of architecture plans. If you're just buying something offline, it could be anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 possibly, and you see the stuff that's online. I would recommend working with a local architect in the state that you live in. Well, let's just talk about North Carolina. Just, or you're working with a drafts person in your local area that's familiar with the North Carolina Building Code. So when they're putting things in the plans, it's according to the code and it's going to pass code, right? As well as hiring an engineer that's licensed in the state that's going to look at those plans, and they're going to do the technical drawings and load calculations and things like that for the different parts of the plans that are requiring, engineering. So there's lots of good architects in the area. If you're building a custom home and, we're talking, you got a relatively, large budget, then, you may want, and you want everything designed the way you want it designed, then you may want to sit down with an actual architect in the area. That way, every decision, every wall, every window is designed specifically for how you want it to be. And that's probably the best approach. Something that I offer is what I call a pre-construction agreement, and I work with you, the person who's looking to build a home. And what I do is I basically work on a scope of work. I work with the architect. I work for you, the client, to put together a scope of work and a budget for what it's going to cost to build the house that you're looking to build. So if you already had a set of plans, I would come in and look at those set of plans and work with, different, contractors and do all the estimates and build a scope of work of, making sure, all right, this is what this house is going to cost to build based off of, what you currently have. And I need to just go ahead and do that other video where I talk about, cost. But at the end of the day, you really try to take a set of plans and do all the material takeoffs, if you will, or material estimates for this is how much material is going to cost to build the structure, or this is how much material is required, and then this is how much labor it's going to cost to build the structure, versus saying, oh, this house over here is, $190 a square foot, or this one's $400 a square foot. So some of those price points are really going to depend on, some of the selections that you make, whether you're buying, the $200 Delta faucet or the $800 Delta faucet, right? So those are some things to keep in mind in terms of cost of the construction. But, this video more or less is about, do you have the right set of plans? Do your plans have all the information that's required to pass the planning department and you actually get a building permit, and versus you just have something that's kind of sketched out and a lot of things are missing. So the key things are having a set of plans that has all the different required sections, as I mentioned before, the footing, engineered, number one. That's going to have the footing stuff, the foundation layout, the framing, the walls, all those different things, the roof pitches, the elevation, what it's supposed to look like on the outside, having all those different components in your set of plans to make sure that, number one, you're going to be able to get a building permit. Number two, that the structure is going to be buildable, by a builder or framer, general contractor, let's just say, and it's got everything, that all the different sections that are required. Additional sections that are nice to have: electrical, mechanical type stuff, plumbing. Most of the times those aren't included in a set of plans, but it's good to think about how the plumbing is going to be ran, how the mechanical is going to be run, because those things require some additional framing components, and locations of where things need to be or where things shouldn't be in order to accommodate plumbing and mechanical. So as you're doing the planning, from an architect standpoint or from the pre-construction standpoint, you definitely, if you don't have pre-designed plumbing and mechanical in the plan, then you definitely want to make sure you take the time to figure out, all right, am I going to have to cut through something to get this mechanical or this HVAC duct installed? Am I going to have to cut through something to get this plumbing installed? Because the last thing you want to do is leave it up to one of those tradespeople to just go in there and hack away at something, and they shouldn't have hacked away at it, or they hack it in a location that shouldn't be notched, or they notch too much out of a piece of lumber, and then you're having to come in as the builder and the homeowner and pay more to fix some of those things. So you definitely want to think through some of those things ahead of time. So when it comes to plumbing and mechanical specifically, even electrical for that matter, that you've accommodated those trades and made sure that a toilet is not going to be right over a floor joist, right? And if it is, now you have to do some reconfiguration and some framing versus letting the plumber just cut into that floor joist, which shouldn't be done, depending on the location of that cut and how much of it. All that stuff is in the code book of what can be cut, what shouldn't be cut, where it can be cut, and how much of a member can be cut out. So you can avoid all that stuff in the pre-planning phases of your build. So once again, this is Eric with Eric Ingram Homes. Hope you were able to learn something from that video. I'm definitely going to keep on doing more videos just to be helpful and transparent on your next build. And stay tuned, stay locked in, and thanks for watching.